The last transmission, in the cold darkness between stars. A lonely signal drifted through the void. It was weak, broken, and filled with the sound of screams. The message came from a small colony on the edge of the galaxy. A world called Serath Prime. The people of that world had sent one final call for help. A desperate cry before silence swallowed them. The Galactic Council received the signal, but no one moved. In the great golden halls of the Council, thousands of alien delegates watched the message repeat again and again. On the glowing screens they saw a city burning, skies filled with black clouds and massive creatures devouring everything. The creatures were known only as the Void Swarm, a living plague that consumed entire worlds. "Serath Prime has fallen," said one counselor quietly. Another alien with crystal blue skin and silver eyes shook his head. "We cannot help them, not this time." The chamber filled with cold voices, each one arguing about borders, politics, and trade. They spoke about treaties, about risk, about the value of resources. But not one spoke about the dying. An old alien, sitting in the back of the chamber, listened in silence. His scales were faded, and his eyes were tired. He had seen wars before long ago. Before the humans disappeared from the stars, he leaned forward and whispered, "We should call them." The room fell silent. "Call who?" someone asked. The old alien's voice was quiet but strong. "The Death Worlders," he said. "The humans." Laughter filled the hall, sharp and mocking. "Humans? They are gone, old one," said a counselor from the core systems. "They destroyed themselves centuries ago." "Even if they survived," another added. "They were savages and too emotional, too violent, too unpredictable." The old alien looked down, his hands trembling. "And yet," he said softly, "they were the only ones who fought when no one else dared." Outside, the stars burned cold and silent. The signal from Serath Prime faded, replaced by static. The galaxy turned away, pretending not to hear the cries of a dying world. Far away in the dark system of Sol, deep under the frozen crust of Europa, a listening station came to life. It had been silent for centuries, hidden beneath layers of ice and rock. Its sensors detected the faint echo of the distress call. Inside the abandoned human base, machines began to hum, lights flickering to life one by one. Deep beneath the ice, a voice spoke through the static. "Calm and human. Signal received," it said. "Origin confirmed, Serath Prime. Classification, extinction level event." The system waited. Then another voice responded, older, colder, filled with command. "Forward to Terran Command." In orbit around Earth, the planet was no longer blue. Half of it was covered in giant shields and shipyards that glowed like cities of light. The oceans shimmered with defense grids and the continents pulsed with underground life. Earth was not silent, it was waiting. In the command center known as the Core Nexus, a woman in a dark uniform watched the signal appear on the screen. She had gray eyes and a scar across her cheek. Her name was Admiral Celine Ward, Supreme Commander of the Terran Fleet. When she saw the signal, she didn't speak. She simply placed her hand on the console and whispered, "It has begun." Behind her, hundreds of officers watched in silence. "Ma'am," one of them said carefully, "do we respond?" Celine turned slowly, her face calm. "We have waited 300 years for this moment," she said. "Activate the protocols all across the Sol system." Alarms began to sound, deep and thunderous, echoing through planets and moons. On Mars, buried war factories came alive, shaking off centuries of dust on Luna. Giant hangar doors opened, revealing ships longer than cities. Their hulls bore the name TSS Nemesis, TSS Dawnfire, TSS Horizon, names from an ancient age when humanity ruled the stars. Every ship's AI woke from slumber, their voices calm and sharp. "Awaiting command authorization," they said. Admiral Celine raised her hand, her voice steady. "This is Earth Command to all units," she said. "Project Phoenix is green." Far away, the Galactic Council still debated. They did not know that something old had awoken. They did not know that the silence of Earth had never been peace. It had been preparation. As the human fleet powered up, a single message was sent into the void. It was short, and it carried a tone colder than the stars themselves. "Transmission received," the voice said. "Earth remembers, the galaxy unaware, continued its endless talk of politics and fear. But somewhere in the darkness, thousands of human warships began to rise. Engines roared like thunder, weapons came alive, and the old flag of Earth unfurled across the stars once more. Humanity had not vanished. It had been waiting for the right moment. And now, when all hope was lost, Earth was ready to answer. The awakening of the hidden armada under the frozen crust of Europa. Silence had ruled for centuries, but now the ice trembled, groaned, and began to crack like glass under pressure. Buried deep within the moon's core, massive hangar doors slowly opened, releasing ancient dust into the void. Red emergency lights flashed to life, illuminating endless rows of black warships, silent, massive, and terrifying. Each ship carried the emblem of an old Earth, a silver eagle spreading its wings over a burning star. They were called the Eclipse-class dreadnoughts, ships built not for defense but for survival. Their armor was made of dark matter composite, strong enough to withstand a dying sun. For centuries they had slept beneath Europa's crust, hidden from the galaxy's eyes, waiting for a command that never came until now. A cold mechanical voice filled the hangar. Terran Fleet Command authorization received, it said. All units initiating reactivation protocols. Engines that hadn't burned for 300 years suddenly roared to life. Energy surged through the massive ships like blood returning to frozen veins. Each ship's reactor core hummed, glowing with a soft white light, a heartbeat reborn. And with that light came something more. Purpose, vengeance, and memory. Admiral Celine Ward stood inside the core nexus on Earth, watching the fleet status update in real time. Europa base is fully operational, an officer reported. His voice trembling with awe. Celine nodded. Proceed with Titan Command and Mars Armory activation, she said calmly. Let's wake them all. On Titan, methane storms howled across the orange sky as hidden bunkers erupted open. Thousands of automated drones rose like a swarm of silver birds, each carrying weapon modules to orbiting ships. On Mars, massive shipyards came alive, red dust swirling as ancient robotic workers began to rebuild ships long buried. And on Luna, deep under the Sea of Tranquility, a vault door marked Phoenix Command opened for the first time in 3 centuries. Inside that vault stood the AI Trinity Core, a cluster of artificial minds that once guided humanity's last war. The 3 AIs, Atlas, Hera, and Sol, spoke in unison as they came online. Directive confirmed, they said, their voices calm yet powerful. Reactivation complete. Fleet synchronization in progress. The Earth trembled slightly as massive energy waves pulsed through the solar system. Civilian colonies hidden on Mercury and Mars looked up in silence as the night sky filled with lights. Human ships rising from the shadows. Old families who had kept the secret for generations whispered prayers. The Guardians are awake again, one old engineer said. Tears in his eyes. Humanity rises once more. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, in a monitoring station belonging to the Zeran Empire, an alien technician stared at his screen in shock. He saw a flare of unnatural energy signatures near the Sol system. Commander, we have activity, he said. Something's moving out there. His superior frowned. That sector is abandoned. There is nothing left on Earth. The technician zoomed in, and his blood ran cold. On the display, countless energy signatures appeared. Not random, but organized, coordinated formations of warships, all bearing the same terrifying symbol. The old Terran Eagle, my God, the alien whispered. They're back. Back on Earth, Admiral Celine stood before a massive viewing window overlooking orbit. Beyond the glass, ships ascended one by one, breaking through clouds like angels of war, each vessel linked to the next through invisible quantum networks, forming a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Terran War Armada, the hidden army humanity had built in secret while the galaxy forgot them. Status report, Celine said, her voice calm but fierce. All fleets report operational readiness at 95%, replied Commander Isha Kor. Her second-in-command, Europa Command standing by, Titan Command standing by, Mars Command standing by. Celine looked at the holographic map. Stars and red lines marking the positions of the swarm. Begin launch sequence, she ordered. Let the galaxy know humanity is not extinct. The hangars on Europa opened wide, revealing the endless void one by one. Dreadnoughts ignited their drives, glowing with a deep blue light. Their engines hummed like the roar of 1,000 storms, shaking the ice into vapor. Each ship rose slowly, majestic and unstoppable, until the dark moon shone bright with reflected light from their engines. In the void, the first Terran fleet aligned into battle formation. Rows upon rows of colossal ships stretched beyond sight, each armed with weapons forbidden by galactic law. These were relics of an ancient age when humanity had defied the stars themselves. The ship's AI spoke in unison, all systems green, awaiting command signal. Celine raised her hand. Her voice echoed across every frequency, every ship, every AI. "This is Admiral Celine Ward of Earth Command," she said. "For centuries we watched, waited, and prepared, while the galaxy forgot us. But now the swarm spreads across innocent worlds, and the Council turns away in fear. We are humanity, the Deathworlders," she said, her eyes cold as steel, "and we will not watch another world die." The final code was entered. Across the system, the fleet responded. Thousands of engines ignited at once, and the Terran War Armada began to rise from the cradle of Earth's shadow. The stars trembled. The ice of Europa melted away under the heat of re-entry. The dark side of the solar system glowed with light once more. The silence of centuries was broken by the roar of warships taking flight. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy was about to remember why it once feared the name Earth. ChatGPT said absolutely. Here is part 3. The Galaxy Trembles. Written in third person, simple English. Around 800 words, filled with suspense, tension, and cinematic emotion, and with commas replacing full stops for your YouTube voiceover narration. The galaxy trembles across the vast galaxy. Stars continued to burn quietly, unaware that history had just shifted. But deep within the halls of the Galactic Council, that peace shattered like fragile glass. "Confirmed readings from the Sol system," an analyst shouted, his voice shaking the council chamber. A towering room of glass and light erupted into chaos. "Thousands of energy signatures," another alien cried. Massive displacement waves, all coming from one origin point. Earth, the word Earth silenced the room. No one had spoken that name for centuries to most. It was a ghost story, a dead world swallowed by its own wars, a myth whispered to frighten children, the council leader. High Chancellor Zirath stood frozen, her silver tendrils trembling. "Impossible," she whispered. "Humans were extinct." The analysts exchanged terrified looks. "Not extinct," one said. "Awake." Holographic screens filled with images, massive ships moving in perfect formation, war signatures unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their design was ancient, their power readings unreal, and their numbers uncountable. The galaxy had known fleets, but this was something else. This was a storm-given form. Counselors shouted over each other, panic filling the air. Are they coming for us? Are they hostile? What does the human message mean? Why now? Then the council's central AI system displayed the intercepted transmission. It was short, only 3 words, but it froze every soul who heard it. Earth remembers. The words echoed through the chamber like thunder. For centuries, the galaxy had mocked humanity, calling them savages, emotional beasts unfit for peace. But now, those same savages had returned, and they had come armed with the largest war fleet ever seen. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim, alien trade convoys halted mid-flight as sensors went dark. The void rippled, and then, like ghosts in the dark, enormous shapes emerged from hyperspace. Black ships with glowing engines, their hulls etched with the Terran eagle. The captains of nearby fleets watched in silence. Unable to speak, the ships made no broadcast, sent no message, and they simply moved, precise and terrifying. One alien captain whispered in horror, "Those aren't ships. They're extinction machines." Her crew trembled as the dreadnoughts passed by, each one the size of a moon. Then, without a word, the human ships disappeared again, jumping toward the outer systems where the void swarm raged. On the other side of the galaxy, the swarm continued its destruction. Vast black clouds of living organisms devoured entire planets, stripping oceans, consuming cities. Billions cried out for help, but the Council had done nothing. Until now, when humanity's signal broke through the static. In the war-torn system of Caldris, alien soldiers on the ground saw something strange in the sky. A flash of blue light, followed by a burning trail that split the clouds apart. Then, like falling stars, the first Terran warships entered orbit. The alien commander grabbed his communicator. "This is Commander Vrix of Caldris Defense," he shouted. "Identify yourself." A calm voice answered through the static, human and cold. "This is Terran Command," the voice said. "Stand down. We are engaging the enemy." Before Vrix could reply, the sky exploded from orbit. Humanity's fleet unleashed its fury. Beams of light brighter than suns carved through the atmosphere, tearing apart the swarm's colossal forms. Where minutes ago black clouds covered the world, now there was fire, cleansing, burning precise fire. Every shot hit its target. Every ship moved in perfect unity. It wasn't a battle, it was an execution. Back at the council, new feeds came in. Caldris system saved, said one analyst. Swarm annihilated by unknown human forces. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. High Chancellor Zirath leaned forward. They saved Caldris? She asked. Yes, came the reply. But they didn't answer any calls, they just destroyed the swarm and vanished, an elder diplomat whispered. They're not doing this for us. They're doing it because they can. Across hundreds of star systems, rumors spread faster than light. Humanity has returned, people whispered in markets, in ships, in temples. Deathworlders walk again. Some aliens were terrified, remembering ancient wars fought against human colonies that refused to surrender. Others felt something deeper, hope. Because when the swarm came, no one else had answered their calls. Only Earth, the forgotten world, had listened in the void between stars inside her flagship Nemesis. Admiral Celine Ward stood before the massive viewing glass. Beyond it, the remains of the swarm floated in silence, glowing embers drifting through space like ash. Her officers stood behind her, silent, waiting. Status, she said quietly. All hostiles eliminated, replied Commander Aisha. No losses. Celine nodded slowly. Good, she said. Send this message to all systems. The officer hesitated. What message, Admiral? Celine turned, her face calm and emotionless. Tell them, she said. Humanity has returned to the stars. The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every world, every species, every corner of known space heard it, and the reaction was the same, fear and awe. The Galactic Council reconvened in panic. What do we do? Someone asked. The Chancellor's voice trembled. We pray, she said softly. We pray they remember mercy. Because humanity had awakened, and the galaxy trembled beneath their return. The first contact of fire in the cold black void beyond the rim worlds. The swarm had reached its peak. Billions of living ships filled the system. A storm of teeth and hunger that devoured everything in its path. Worlds burned, stars dimmed, and the screams of dying civilizations faded into the endless dark. No one could stop them. Not the mighty council fleets. Not the warlords. Not the machine empires that once ruled the stars. Until now, a sudden distortion rippled across the system. Sensors screamed as space itself bent and folded. The creatures of the swarm turned their many eyes toward the void, sensing something approaching, something vast and unnatural. Then out of the dark, the first Terran dreadnought arrived. It didn't come alone. Behind it, hundreds more followed, forming a massive wall of metal and light. The fleet emerged in perfect silence, engines burning blue, hulls gleaming with ancient symbols of Earth. The lead ship bore a name carved deep into its armor, TSS Nemesis. The flagship of humanity inside the bridge, Admiral Celine Ward stood at the viewing screen, her hands clasped behind her back. Her crew worked without words, their faces calm, their eyes focused. Fleet status, she said quietly. All systems nominal, weapons charged. Eyes synchronized, replied Commander Aisha Kaur. Celine nodded once, her gray eyes cold. Open the channel, she said. Her voice carried through the comms, broadcast across every ship, every soldier, every AI. This is Admiral Ward of the Terran Fleet, she said, her tone steady and powerful. 300 years ago, humanity vanished into silence not because we were defeated, but because we were preparing. We watched the galaxy fall into complacency, and we swore that when the darkness came we would return. Today, that darkness is here. Let this be humanity's first message to the stars in 3 centuries. We are still here, and we do not kneel. The fleet responded with a single sound, the thunderous ignition of 1,000 cannons. The sky exploded with light. The first barrage hit the swarm with devastating precision. Columns of fire tore through the void, vaporizing millions of enemy creatures in seconds. The swarm screamed as space itself rippled under the assault. But more came, endless and wild, surging forward like an ocean of nightmares. Swarm density increasing, Aisha called out. They're adapting. Then adapt faster, Celine said, her voice sharp. Deploy the Iron Wings. From the sides of the dreadnoughts, swarms of smaller Terran strike ships emerged. They moved like living things, darting between the creatures with impossible speed. Each fighter carried advanced plasma-tipped rounds and self-learning AIs that anticipated enemy motion before it happened. Within moments, the battlefield turned into a storm of explosions and burning flesh. Aboard the TSS Nemesis, tactical displays filled the air, showing kill counts rising by the thousands, but even as the swarm fell, more arrived. Crawling out of hyperspace, endless and hungry, one massive creature, the size of a small moon, emerged from the center, its body pulsing with energy. It roared across the void, a sound that shook even hardened soldiers to their core. Celine's eyes narrowed. "Target the apex entity," she ordered. "Fire the Solaris Lance." Deep within the dreadnought's core, massive energy conduits glowed white-hot. The ship's hull trembled as its reactor output reached critical levels. "Lance charging," said the weapons officer. "Target locked." Celine raised her hand. Release, a beam of pure light shot from the Nemesis, slicing across space like a blade. It struck the swarm's moon beast square in the chest. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the creature exploded, not in fire, but in light. A blinding flash tore through the void, followed by a shockwave that erased everything in its path. The nearby alien fleets watching from a distance fell silent. They had never seen such power. The transmission feeds filled with stunned voices. "By the stars," whispered one alien admiral. "They destroyed it with a single shot," another voice. Trembling with awe, said, "They fight like gods," but Celine was not done. "Continue the offensive," she said, her voice calm. "No mercy for the swarm. For hours, the human fleet moved like a storm. Their ships burned brighter than suns, cutting through the enemy with surgical precision. Each dreadnought moved in harmony, protecting one another, never faltering, never retreating. Human soldiers aboard the smaller cruisers cheered as the swarm began to collapse. Everywhere the humans struck, the darkness faded. Finally, when the last swarm creature fell silent, Celine gave her final order. "Cease fire," she said. The battlefield was quiet again. Only drifting ash and fragments of alien flesh remained. Floating in the cold vacuum of space, the human fleet stood in perfect formation, their lights glowing softly against the darkness. Celine looked out over the silent battlefield. "Transmit a message," she said. "To the Galactic Council?" asked Aisha. Celine shook her head. "To everyone," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Tell them what happens when humanity returns to war." The message spread like wildfire through the galaxy. A recording of the battle, the destruction, and the words of the Terran Admiral. Alien worlds watched in silence. Realizing the truth, the age of human silence was over, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The fall of the swarm. The battle at the outer rim was only the beginning. Far beyond the reach of light, in the black heart of the galaxy, the swarm's main hive pulsed like a living sun. It was a world-sized organism, covered in endless layers of flesh. Bone and metal, it fed on dead stars, drawing power from everything it consumed. Billions of creatures surrounded it, forming a living wall of death. For centuries, this hive had grown unchecked, devouring fleets, consuming worlds, turning civilizations into dust. But now, for the first time in its existence, it had met something that did not run, something that fought back, something called humanity. The Terran Armada advanced through the dark, thousands of dreadnoughts in perfect formation, their engines glowing like white fire. The Nemesis led the charge, her hull still scarred from the last battle. Behind her, carriers, destroyers, and orbital forges moved as one, a machine made of will and fury. Inside the core nexus of the fleet, Admiral Celine Ward stood before the central holomap. It displayed the swarm hive, a mass the size of a gas giant. Throbbing with life, her officers stared at it in disbelief. "There's no way to destroy something that big," whispered one. Celine's eyes didn't move. "That's what they said about Earth." "Once," she replied. Orders rippled through the fleet. Every captain, every AI, every drone prepared for the final engagement. "Operation Sunbreaker is authorized," Celine commanded. "Deploy all divisions." The Terran Armada moved like an ocean of steel. Massive battleships spread out across the void, surrounding the swarm hive in a perfect sphere. As the humans advanced, the swarm reacted. Millions of bioships emerged, shrieking through space. Their bodies glowed with bioplasma, their wings stretched like shadows across the stars. "Contact imminent," shouted Commander Isha Kaur. "Defensive grid active," replied the tactical officer. The swarm hit them like a tidal wave. The void exploded in chaos, light and shadow clashing in a war that bent the fabric of space itself. Terran plasma lances tore through the first wave. Swarm titans collided with dreadnoughts, their claws carving deep into steel. Human fighters darted between them, their AIs predicting every movement before it happened. The battle became a storm of fury. Every explosion painted the darkness with light. Every scream echoed across the comms. Celine's voice remained calm, cutting through the chaos. Maintain formation. Focus fire on the central cluster, she ordered. Do not let them separate us. Even as her own ship shook under impact, she stood unmoved. The bridge lights flickered. Sparks rained from the ceiling and alarms screamed, but her tone never broke. Humanity has one rule, she said quietly. We do not run. In orbit around the swarm hive, a small human vessel, the Horizon, broke through the enemy lines. It carried a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Sunbreaker device, a compact artificial star designed to collapse and ignite within seconds. Its purpose was not destruction, but rebirth, to burn away everything that could not survive the light. Captain Marin, commander of the Horizon, stood before the weapon chamber. He placed his hand on the console, his voice steady. Once we deploy it, there's no coming back, his first officer said. Marin smiled faintly. We never came for glory, he replied. We came so others could live. The Horizon accelerated toward the hive. Enemy creatures swarmed it, tearing at its hull. But the ship kept pushing forward. Its engines burned until they shattered. The crew transmitted one final message. For Earth, they said, and then they were gone. From the bridge of the Nemesis, Celine watched as a new sun bloomed in the distance. The Sunbreaker detonated. A flash brighter than creation itself filled the void. The wave of light tore through the swarm hive, turning its flesh to ash, its titans to dust. The explosion rippled through the galaxy, a supernova of fire and fury. When the light faded, there was silence. The hive was gone. All that remained was a drifting field of glowing dust and shattered bone. Celine closed her eyes, the faintest tremor in her voice as she spoke. Signal all ships, she said softly. The swarm is dead. Across the fleet, cheers erupted, human and AI voices blending together in triumph. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was safe, but Celine did not smile. She turned to the stars where the hive once was and whispered, Humanity does not destroy for pride. We destroy to protect. In distant systems, alien worlds received the signal. Images of the battle spread across every network. Children watched as the Terran Armada drifted past the ashes of their greatest enemy. And for the first time, the galaxy spoke one truth. When hope was lost, it was Earth that answered. The fleet began to regroup, engines dimming as the stars returned to silence. But deep within the flagship, another signal flickered to life. An encrypted code from beyond known space, marked with a symbol not seen for centuries. Celine's eyes narrowed as she read it. It was from an unknown human station. Far beyond the rim, the message was short, and it made her blood run cold. New contact detected, it said. Unknown origin. Phase 2 begins. Celine stared into the darkness and whispered, Then it isn't over. The galaxy's awakening, the swarm was gone. The black tide that had devoured stars, civilizations, and hope itself had been erased from existence for the first time in 1,000 years. The galaxy was silent, but peace did not bring comfort. It brought questions, it brought fear. The Galactic Council met again, not in pride this time, but in trembling awe. The massive chamber that once echoed with arrogance now felt small under the shadow of what humanity had done. Holograms of the battle replayed before the delegates, a sun born from human hands, fleets moving like one living being. The hive's destruction caught in light too bright to comprehend. Many turned away, unable to watch. The council leader, High Chancellor Zirath, spoke softly. The humans have done what we could not, another counselor whispered. They saved us, a third replied with dread. Or reminded us who rules the stars. Whispers filled the chamber. They came from nowhere. They wielded the power of gods. They destroyed an empire with a single weapon. The galaxy had seen empires rise and fall, but never had it witnessed such total, deliberate power. Then the question arose, where are they now? Because when the light faded, when the swarm was gone, the human fleet had vanished. No signal, no transmission, no trace, only silence. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said the humans had returned to their hidden world to rebuild. Others said they were watching from the void, preparing for something worse. And some whispered a darker story, that the swarm had only been the beginning. On the outer colonies of the Thalrian Reach, an alien scout ship found the ruins of an ancient station floating beyond the galactic rim. Inside, it discovered human technology unlike anything seen before. A small console still active showing a single blinking message. Project Ascendant, Stage 2 in progress. The captain transmitted the data to the council, but within minutes the station self-destructed. Leaving nothing behind, panic began to spread again. "What are they planning?" asked one ambassador. "Are they preparing for war?" High Chancellor Zirath shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "They are preparing for something we cannot imagine." Meanwhile, far from the council's reach, on a remote world rebuilt after the war, alien civilians gathered in the streets. They painted murals of Terran ships in the sky. Children played games pretending to be the humans from Earth, and in temples across the galaxy, a new phrase began to spread. "When all hope is lost, look to Earth." In a refugee colony once destroyed by the swarm, a small alien girl placed a flower before a hologram of a human soldier. Her voice was small but filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, "for remembering us." And though no one heard her words, somewhere deep in the stars, humanity's satellites recorded them, storing her message forever. On Earth, Admiral Celine Ward stood before the black ocean. The night sky full of stars, the war was over. But her eyes were not at peace. She held a small holographic device in her hand. The message from the unknown station. The data showed something horrifying. A new signal beyond the galaxy. Stronger than the swarm's ever was. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady. Something out there was moving. Something vast enough to make even humanity's armada look small. Celine turned as Commander Aisha Kor approached. "The Council is asking for a meeting," Isha said. "They want an alliance," Celine smiled faintly. "An alliance with those who abandoned us," she said softly. "Strange how quickly they remember humanity when they're afraid." Aisha hesitated. "Should we answer them?" Celine looked back at the stars, her expression unreadable. "No," she said. "Not yet. Let them wonder, let them think we've gone." Her eyes narrowed, cold and certain, because when the real war begins, they will need us again, and this time they will not mock the Deathworlders. In the dark reaches of space, the remnants of the swarm drifted like ash. Among the ruins, hidden deep in the void, something stirred. An ancient mind, older than galaxies, opened its eyes. It had watched the destruction of its children. It had felt the death of the hive, and now it whispered into the dark. "They have awakened. The species of fire." The stars around it dimmed one by one. Space itself seemed to pulse in response. The galaxy, still reeling from its salvation, did not yet know the truth, that the swarm had not been the master, only the servant, and its master was now coming back on Earth. The Terran command network flickered. Thousands of dormant ships, damaged, resting, waiting, received new coordinates. Admiral Celine's eyes reflected the light of the activation codes. "Project Ascendant." She whispered, "It's time." All across the Sol system, hidden vaults opened. Gigantic structures rose from beneath oceans and mountains. The human war machine, silent once more, began to hum, not in anger, but in readiness, because Earth knew something no one else did. The swarm was only a warning, and humanity's true enemy had finally heard them roar. The legend of Earth centuries passed, and the light of war faded into memory. Worlds once burned by the swarm were now full of life again. Cities rose, oceans glittered. Children laughed beneath alien suns. But across the galaxy, one story refused to die. The story of the day when all hope was lost and a world called Earth answered. Bards sang of ships that glowed like falling stars, of voices that spoke through fire. Priests whispered prayers that began with the words, "Earth remembers." And wherever two or more species met beneath the same sky, they spoke of the Deathworlders, the humans who returned when the galaxy needed them most. Monuments rose on 1,000 worlds on Serath Prime, where the last scream of the first victims had once echoed. A tower now touched the clouds, built from metal gifted by the Terrans themselves. At its peak burned an eternal light, white and calm, symbol of the sun humanity had forged to end the darkness. Beneath it, a simple inscription in every galactic tongue read, "They came not to rule but to remind us to stand." In the archives of the Galactic Council, a sealed file was kept under maximum security. Only the highest leaders could see it. It contained every recording of the Terran Armada, every broadcast, every image of the Nemesis in battle. And at the very end of the file, there was a final transmission, never shown to the public. It was from Admiral Celine Ward, her voice calm, her gray eyes fixed on the stars. "To those who come after," she said, "remember this: humanity is not power. Humanity is purpose. We rise when others fall, because that is what it means to live." The message ended with one final phrase. Earth sleeps, but she dreams of the stars. The council leaders watched it in silence. Even the proudest among them felt small, because they knew that somewhere out there, beyond the rim, the humans were still watching, and they were right, far beyond the known galaxy. In a region without name, the Terran fleet had not disbanded. It had changed, evolved, disappeared into the void. Gigantic ring stations floated above a newborn world, a second Earth forged among the stars. Children of every species trained side by side under the Terran banner, learning not only to fight, but to protect. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy. They were building something greater, a shield for all who could not defend themselves. Admiral Celine, older now, stood at the window of her new command citadel, watching the construction of the next generation of ships. Each vessel brighter, faster, smarter than the last. Her reflection smiled faintly. "The galaxy thinks we are gone," she said quietly. "Let them believe it," replied Commander Isha, standing beside her. Celine nodded, her gaze fixed on the endless dark beyond the stars. "When they need us again, they will see the sky burn once more." Below them, the Terran anthem played through the halls in a soft, ancient melody once sung by soldiers long forgotten. Every note carried pride, sorrow, and promise across the galaxy. Civilizations rebuilt in peace, but in every temple, every academy, every government hall, a single phrase endured, carved into stone, spoken at dawn ceremonies when the stars grow silent. Earth will rise again, and sometimes travelers claimed they had seen it, a shadow moving between constellations, a colossal shape that blocked out starlight for a moment before vanishing. Some said it was myth, others said it was warning, but those who had been there, those who had seen the fire and the fury, they knew it was not a ghost, it was the Nemesis. Still watching, still guarding, because humanity does not conquer. Humanity endures. They came from a world of storms and struggle, forged by gravity, fear, and fire. And when the universe forgets courage, the echo of their engines will remind it. In the end, the galaxy did not fear Earth. It honored her, and though centuries turned into millennia, one legend never dimmed, that somewhere in the heart of the void, beneath the silent watch of forgotten suns, a voice would one day whisper again. Transmission received, Earth remembers.